welcome in. It is another fun-filled adventure called Geeks in Suits. I'm Tyler Stutzman.
I'm Chase Gerber. We are extremely happy to be with you today. This is our 7th episode. And this is going to be a jam-filled one.
Or jelly-filled.
I'm Ben Gerber. And guys, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Are you afraid of a dead whore? It's a serious question. Are you afraid of a dead whore?
Kind of.
Afraid of a dead whore refers to a huge scene that happened in this finale of Game of Thrones Season 4. Obviously.
Which, honestly, I think we can jump right into.
No pussyfooting around.
Yeah, no pussyfooting around.
It refers exactly to the last words spoken spoiler alert, by Tywin Lannister before he gets a crossbow shot into his chest by his son Tyrion.
Yep.
Not even the arrow, the whole crossbow.
Yeah, the whole crossbow.
He threw the crossbow.
Whatever.
Anyway, if you didn't get the memo, Season 4 of Game of Thrones wrapped up on Sunday.
Yes, it did.
The biggest of which is the Tyrion killing Tywin.
Yes.
I think that was the for book readers, obviously we were a little disappointed with it.
There were a couple things throughout the whole episode that I'm sure we'll talk about at some point or another that were just a little different.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest one.
Yeah, but
the biggest
that was still the
change, not the biggest exception, the biggest change.
Yeah, and it was probably the most gratifying one that we got of the stuff that we were expecting.
Even I've heard show watchers say though, because
we do have problems with it,
and it's not just because we're book readers either, and being snobs. From reading the books.
That's not what we want to be.
No, that's not what
it happens.
Either,
it happens, but
even despite that, the whole Tyrion arc of this episode was really rushed. I even heard TV show critics say that it felt really rushed.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily because we were expecting more. It actually was really fast-paced and just happened. Suddenly, he's getting broke out, and before we know it, he's choking Shay to death.
What I was thinking, within maybe even 20 minutes after the episode ended, was why not just put the Stannis and Davos arriving in episode 9?
Yeah, really.
Or at the very least the Ygritte Pyre scene. Some of that I can understand. If maybe not the Stannis Davos, but one of those two scenes you could have either cut down or moved just completely to episode 9, made that one maybe 5 minutes longer at most. It'd still probably be right under an hour or so.
Well, hey,
one thing I understand why they didn't put the Stannis thing in episode 9, because that would have seemed eerily just
similar
like
Blackwater.
Yeah. Oh no, despair, we're outnumbered, we can't win. Cavalry!
The difference being, though, that if they left it the way they did, it's the Wild Wings retreating, and then Jon Snow going out to talk to Mance, and then Stannis.
Right.
So
but
it's not
I feel like the ending would have mirrored Blackwater.
It would have been similar, there's no doubt, but it wouldn't have been quite the same. And you also kind of knew that for a while that this was coming. But because and that's the difference between that and the book. Is in the book it seems kind of whoa, they showed up at the wall.
Yeah.
And in the series, they even made it kind of obvious in the season finale of 3 that they were going to go to the wall.
Well, I think what they did a great job of doing is kind of making you forget about all that.
Yeah, because it took forever.
I had friends asking, so what are Stannis and Davos doing? Why can't I say words tonight? Damn it. They were like, so wait, where were they heading again? And I didn't say. I was like, well, if you'd paid attention last year, you'd still know.
You'd still remember.
Because all season they did not even speak of what direction they were going.
No.
Which I think was really good on the showrunner's part to, not make things obvious.
Yeah.
Make you a smart show watcher and make you have to week in and week out stay on task.
Yeah.
But anyways, back to our original point. If they would have taken some of the Stannis Davos stuff out, maybe put it in the last episode,
because that was the most expendable stuff.
Well, I mean, it may be even having Jon at least go and talk to Mance, and then all of a sudden there's a commotion, and then boom, episode over, cliffhanger. something like that. That's like 5 minutes more you put into Watchers on the Wall. It would have still been under an hour, and then we have extra time for Tyrion.
That gives Mance Rayder another credit for an episode.
Exactly.
Instead of the 3 that he's in.
All we needed was like 5 more minutes.
That's really all that we needed.
And I know it was already 66 minutes, but that episode needed 5
And, you know, I really have 2 big problems with the Tyrion scene, which first would be
that it was rushed.
Jamie, it has to do with its rushed, obviously. Jamie busts him out and is like, okay, see ya, have fun.
Yeah.
There's no exchange there, and I know, obviously, in the book it's different, and the whole dynamic has changed because Jamie arrives before the wedding and talks to Tyrion in his cell, whereas in the book, he's after the wedding, doesn't even go to visit Tyrion.
So
that dynamic's changed. They've had plenty of scenes this season, but it just wasn't enough.
Did you guys almost get the feel that it was like a wishful desire by the showrunners that they just hugged it out and
entirely
because honestly we'd probably feel that way too. We really wish it had ended on that good of terms in the book.
It didn't.
But I think that it's so critical to the character development that follows and the bitterness that both of them walk away from each other with are huge motivators for the next
you mentioned that
books.
They kind of almost demand smart show watchers.
They do.
But it's one thing. It's one thing to be smart show watchers. It's another thing to be like recalling show watchers.
Which this show has done a lot of, already, especially
it
this
has.
season.
It certainly has. But this the other thing was this the second part of your problem with this with the scene?
I haven't gotten to that part.
Okay,
yeah, we'll come back.
We'll come back to that.
There's obviously
when we get back to it.
There's some dialogue that is very important that is left out. That has only been mentioned in the show like
way back in season 1, episode 9.
Okay, I was just thinking like
was it twice?
Like obviously it was significant the first time in episode 1, season 9, the Taisha scene, like where he's revealing the one time that he was in love and then married before.
But she was a whore.
But she was a whore.
Yeah.
And what we get from that is in the book is Jamie saying, "Look, she wasn't a whore. Like she actually loved you, but Dad Tywin made
up the story
because he couldn't stand his son being
born to a lowborn."
And at that point in time in the book, Jamie hasn't talked to Tyrion. He doesn't know if Tyrion actually did it. He doesn't think he does, but he doesn't know.
Didn't think he killed Joffrey.
And so what we get from Tyrion then is, first of all, he tells Jamie, "Yeah, I killed your son. I killed Joffrey."
Just an
even though he didn't,
to spite him, just to make him feel bad.
And then the other one we get is he basically tells him that Cersei's been
cheating on him,
fucking around pretty much all over King's Landing, like that, and there's bitterness on both sides there.
Yeah.
And and along with that, we'll go straight into my second problem from there. That's the motivation for Tyrion going up to kill Tywin. But the biggest problem I have is there's all of a sudden a trapdoor in the Tower of the Hand.
Yeah.
And how does Tyrion know that? He gets help from Varys in the book. How does he know? Oh, there's a trapdoor that goes right into my dad's chamber, so I can kill him.
See, I was thinking that too. Like, I'm pretty sure that in the books he has to climb up the Tower of the Hand, like in 250
some rung.
Yeah, some rung.
And then they just skip that whole thing.
Yeah, it's just like instead of and there's like this convenient exit, and then he just walks off. Maybe he did climb 250 rungs, and
but we don't know that.
Either way, they cut it a lot.
And it's just like all of a sudden he's there. And did he come through the floor in the book too?
No,
I thought it was through
like a fireplace.
Yeah, I was thinking like the fireplace or mantle or something like that too, just from memory.
And he walks through the wall also, and it goes into the fireplace, and then he kind of steps out of it.
Yeah, like a circling door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But and I mean the trapdoor, I think it's just kind of
it's a cop.
Kind of like we forgot to do this, so we're just gonna throw it in or something.
Cheapened, yeah.
Like
because
it wouldn't just be a trapdoor.
Yeah. It's not even a trap door. It's a false floor.
Yeah.
Like there's no trap about it. It's just like a hidden
It's like, I feel like Tywin would be like, oh, there's a trap door here. I'm going to put
get
something
nailed down.
heavy on it so no one can climb through.
He's quite an observant dude.
Yeah.
I think he would have figured that out.
It was kind of a cop-out, so...
Yeah. I think it was weird, too, that... Like you said, when Jamie told him about Tysha, that was a huge motivating factor for him wanting to go up there and slaughter his dad. And I understood, too, like, instead they just showed him pausing there and walking up the stairs to Varys, and he's, like, thinking, and he decides to go back up into the Tower of the Hand. Mm-hmm. But it didn't give the vibe right away. He was like, I'm going to kill my father.
Yeah.
It was almost like, I want to go back to the Tower of the Hand for old time's sake or something.
I think what led him to that was, I'm not really sure why he decided to go confront his father, but I got the sense that what pushed him over the edge was when he found out that Shay was...
Yeah.
Because in the show, Shay has always been shown as a much more sympathetic character than she ever was.
Like, she actually loved Tyrion.
And he loved her. And this, it was enough to be betrayed at the trial, but to realize that his own father had banged her after the death sentence, and then he had banged Shay. Mm-hmm. I think that was the tipping point. I don't know if he
wasn't as much what Jamie
just from
said.
watching it, kind of even in trying to take away knowledge of the books. From watching it in the show, it seemed like it almost would have been more of a confrontation than an actual murder mission initially. And then the Shay thing just kind of pushes it over the edge. Right. And once he kills Shay, he realizes, well, too late to go back now. I might as well just kill my father too.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happens. And I almost liked the Shay murdering more than I liked the Tywin murdering, because that one seemed more like a crime of passion. If that makes sense and isn't cheesy. Because it's he sees that, and that more than anything is what can just make, I would believe, any man just go blind with rage when you realize that your own father is doing this to somebody that you loved and shared a relationship. That's just an and for the woman to just be so willing
submissive
to that idea. That one was so much more well received on my end, just because that one seemed like that's Tyrion finally just going off the deep end and just going kill crazy.
Show that was extremely messed up.
Yeah,
that was
it seemed just more well done. But then you get to the Tywin scene. Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with any of the dialogue.
I don't either. That's what I was just getting ready to say.
I think the dialogue was great.
The dialogue, the way they substituted it was just, I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, they wrote this once they got there. Both the way they wrote both of those scenes and presented both those scenes were beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's just that getting there was really rocky and rushed and choppy, and even so for show it goes back to my rant from a couple weeks ago. It's amazing how we see these characters killed that we hate or have grown to just have such disdain for,
and then we get picky when they die.
And we get picky when they die, but at the same time it's just. And this made me realize it too, this past week, they just aren't done nearly as well. I think we're justified in being picky. It was one thing with Joffrey.
So you're going back on your word?
In a way,
I think...
I don't think I'm going back on my word that I think people do need to appreciate that these characters were killed. And finally they got justice served for all the terrible things they've done. Mm-hmm. However... I understand now why, as show watchers only, might not have had the same reactions that book readers had, because they aren't as well presented in the shows. Joffrey's death
was fine.
Joffrey's death was fine.
Red Wedding was fine.
Yeah, Wedding, but that wasn't a bad guy being killed.
Right.
Joffrey's wedding was fine, but I think for show watchers, that death was underwhelming because it was like because he didn't get mutilated.
Yeah.
And
which everyone was wishing.
Yeah, but with this, seeing how they rushed to get to these scenes, I can understand. I can understand the show watchers just kind of being like.
Well, I was expecting more from Tywin's death.
I was.
They showed him, oh, I'm up against the wall, got shot twice, and then they like show his arm drop like that,
and that's it,
and it's dead.
And Tyrion
he's dead.
away.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I even heard someone say, "Is he for sure dead, or did he just like pass out? He didn't get shot in like the heart or anything."
Yeah. No, he got shot like right here.
He got
and then the shoulder.
And the shoulder. And it wasn't even conclusive.
No,
you couldn't even like really tell. And I thought you would at least see his face and see him just like see it in his face. He stopped living.
No, it's all the aerial shot,
yeah.
And I wonder. They've never tapped him for it, but I wonder what it would have been like if Rian Johnson had done that episode. Rian Johnson directed Ozymandias.
If there was to be an Ozymandias in this show, that was it.
Yeah.
Well, I thought there was going to be something else that could have been the capper to make sure.
Rian Johnson, he did.
Is it Rian or Ryan? Because I know who you're talking about now.
I've always heard it pronounced Ryan, but he did that, and he did the Fly episode too. I'm
the most loved and probably the most hated episode.
I'm trying to find out which episodes that he did. He did Fly, 51, and Ozymandias. Okay. And 51 was season 5, episode 4 of Breaking Bad. But obviously Ozymandias was like his crowning jewel. And
is the best single
episode.
Show.
Yeah.
Best single episode of television I've ever seen.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And this could have been the Game of Thrones Ozymandias, and it just wasn't quite there.
Even still, it's amazing that, after all we've bashed it so far for one thing, I still think that this is the best Game of Thrones season finale that they've done.
Oh, definitely.
Without question. It just... Because of...
The most pinnacle moment, the most pinnacle scene was underwhelming. I think that's why we put so much weight, we put so much, as book readers, expectations into that, and I think that's why we feel a little underwhelmed.
Somebody on Reddit this week even said, we as book readers have left all show watchers with the biggest case of blue balls that you'll ever experience. Uh-huh. But the problem is that we as book readers also have that unbelievable case of blue balls. Yeah. Because we were left the same way. We weren't in control. We just were like, we knew is what's going to happen. It was really great. It was a really great episode. There was a lot that got covered, and it still felt underwhelming.
Going back and watching it a second time without certain goggles.
Yeah,
I'll just put it
goggles.
that way. Expecting, and what I mean by that is expecting certain scenes, just anticipating, waiting for that. Going back and just watching it for what it was excellent.
Yeah, it was excellent.
Awesome.
But that's the problem with the book converting to movie or television. Even if the television or the movie is done really well, it's not going to live up to what it's in the book.
For me, this is the first time where that felt true.
I agree
with this show. With this show,
it had never been almost perfect.
It had never been, and even in the times where it changed stuff or altered stuff,
it was totally fine.
It was understandable. It made sense, and most of the time, it was extremely well done. This was and again, for this one, it's just because the subject matter was so much and it was so intense. That's why it was so disappointing. Yeah. Was because this is
it was built up so much by D.B. Wise and David Benioff.
Yeah.
The week before, it was
built up by
so
us.
much. And it was built up by all book readers.
Yep.
Because we were expecting what was coming, and it was a great episode. But I really can't see how Benioff and Wise think this is their best hour of television they've ever released to us. I do not see that.
This was like the NBA Finals last year, where the Spurs had it in the bag. It was wrapped up in everything. And the last 20 seconds, they dropped the ball.
28.2.
Obviously not. Obviously, it's not that big. It was still it was still a success, but
no, and I'm not saying
wasn't the magnitude.
But I feel
it
like
they
dropped the ball in the last 28 seconds of the game.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been the Ozymandias finale of the season.
Yeah,
just wasn't there. But But anyway, I think we covered all of our
We talked
Tyrion.
about that for like 20 minutes.
Yeah. So let's move along here to our next topic. Another, I think, one of my favorite parts of this episode, the beginning. Stannis arriving.
Stannis the Manus.
Stannis the Manus. Let's give this episode some praise.
Yes.
Extremely well done. Love seeing Stannis.
Riders of Rohan.
Exactly. The inner Lord of the Rings. And Davos is at the wall. We don't get that in the books. Love seeing Davos at the wall.
And he was telling Jon off as soon as he spoke to him. No, I think Stannis won over a ton of people in this episode.
Yeah. Because he didn't already.
Well, he's kind of been a downer type character through the TV show. Mm-hmm. He hasn't done much on his own. People always complain about how he's always pulled by the strings by Melisandre or Davos.
Which technically he was to go here.
Definitely. But the way he holds himself, the way he carries himself, the way he talks to Jon Snow, he seems so authoritative and so badass and commanding, and it's finally the Stannis I think we've wanted to see.
Yeah, I like that
he shows up because he chooses to.
I know. I like that. I saw a picture somewhere. It was like a screen cap of like Davos and Stannis together, and it said something about how like most kings are going to tell you that they rule through words, but Stannis is trying to show it through actions by going to the place where no king has wanted to go to help. Yeah. And he shows up to the one place he understands, like, this is where the real battle is. And this is what's going to win me the throne is by showing up where I'm needed, not where I feel like I deserve to be.
He's going. What was the quote in the book? Something about saving the realm to win the throne.
Yeah, not saving the throne to win the realm. It's saving the realm to win the throne.
Right. He had the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And you know, this is the second huge battle. Obviously, he wasn't in Watchers of the Wall, but this is the second huge battle he's been a part of. Like, he just goes where the action goes. Yeah. And especially, like, in Blackwater, he's head of the lines, leading the charge.
Which is great, because he wasn't that way in the books. And that's one of those changes that it's
that's
like,
what I'm
okay
with.
Yeah, you're totally okay
he
with.
Was completely
and now we see him again. He's head of the lines. He goes straight into Mance Rayder's camp and says, "Kneel, bitch."
Yeah. front line.
Like, that is awesome.
Yeah. And then Mance Rayder utters, I'm pretty sure, the House rate of words, "We do not kneel." That was awesome.
Yeah. Love seeing. And by the way, we finally got to see Mance again.
Yeah.
I mean, and the guy that plays Mance, I can't pronounce his name, but he does a great job.
He is great.
Yeah.
I love him. I love his acting.
It's a shame that he hasn't been in more episodes.
The only other thing I've seen him in was he was in HBO's TV show Rome, which had two seasons. It was because it was like at the time the biggest budgetary and the first season was great. I didn't watch the second season because everything I read about it said it was too rushed and just not worthwhile. But he's obviously not in it because he's Caesar, and Caesar's killed at the end of the first season because, spoiler alert, Julius Caesar dies. But
so
he played Julius Caesar in season 1 of Rome, and he did an excellent job with it.
Didn't the main character, the guy who played the main character, died in that show, and that's kind of how
that was Spartacus.
Oh no, that was Spartacus.
Yeah,
that's right. Good call.
I know he's in Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows Part 2.
He plays.
The only other thing I've seen him in is a movie called Amazing Grace, which is about the abolishing of slave trade. And he kind of plays a giant dick in it, and he's really good at it.
Interesting.
So, yeah, but I mean, I love seeing Mance here because he is a lot more involved in the books, and he is a badass.
I think
we haven't seen him.
Weirdly enough, I think we're going to see more of him next season than we have up to this point.
I think the most exciting prospect for next season with that storyline is the interactions we're going to get with Stannis and Jon.
Yeah.
But then also,
Melisandre.
and also Mance Rayder.
Uh-huh.
Like the combination of those actors now. The north of the wall and the wall itself are a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
And hey, sprinkle a little Davos on there because I'm sure he'll be around for at least a few episodes.
Yeah, at least. We don't know how he's gonna go in the show, like what his story's gonna be.
He's not at the wall
even to begin with.
But they can work around that. I'm sure.
I feel like they'll be able to.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad they brought him up there.
He's an interesting character on his own, but he's way more interesting with Stannis.
Yeah.
So I think they have to properly set up where he's going next.
Yeah.
And I like that he's with Stannis for now.
Yeah.
So that gives him a little bit.
Do we want to stay?
The Jon Snow. I have one little just mention. The Jon Snow and Melisandre looking at each other through the flame.
That's foreshadowing.
Yeah, that wasn't any foreshadowing.
That is foreshadowing at its
That
best.
is so much foreshadowing, and we don't even know the full extent
over the
of
fire.
that.
Get ready.
We don't even know
She saw him through the flames.
We don't even know the full extent to that yet.
Yeah.
That makes me giddy.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
Do we want to stay north of the wall and discuss the Bran storyline while we're at it?
Yeah, why don't we?
A little bit, yeah.
The Bran storyline, I think, it caught me off guard a little because I know you said there's kind of hints of Jojen not being well and maybe dying. I read that so long ago. Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't remember him dying.
So him dying.
I knew that he was like on his last legs,
yeah,
and I also knew that he was going to. He wasn't going to see the whole thing out.
Right.
But I never got the indication from reading it that he was dead.
Yeah, neither did I.
So I don't think he was dead in the book yet.
Yeah. I don't think he was
I think
either.
that just gives us a sure confirmation, probably.
That he's not important.
He's not important beyond.
Yeah, he's served his purpose, which I understand.
Given he's essential to Bran's story, yes. I never really found him, at least in the show, that interesting of a character.
Well, he wasn't, because...
He was kind of just a miserable person helping him the whole time.
Bran's storyline wasn't really interesting for the entirety of him being there. Until now, and he's dead now.
And the other thing, too, was, like, that's why, even though I found his death to be a little...
underwhelming.
Really, the Child of the Force shows up a minute after he gets stabbed in the chest. It's like, you couldn't have been waiting right outside the front door for them.
Okay.
You don't do anything else.
The added skeleton warriors thing is kind of...
I was going to say, that didn't happen, did it? I don't remember that
those were supposed to be whites. Those were supposed to be, like, long dead whites that had been decayed and been nothing but bone. But...
You never got that indication.
Bodies don't decay
is that in the book?
In
the cold.
Yeah.
So, wouldn't they have been perfectly preserved in the science, whatever?
Well,
it's not.
Are you talking the really decayed whites? That's not in the... You're not talking about, like, that's in the book.
Well, the white attack in the book happens.
There is a white attack in the book?
Right, before they...
I honestly...
You guys are really behind on this.
Dude, I'm rereading, I'll get there.
Right before they get to the cave... They get attacked by whites.
Okay.
And a character who isn't in the show.
Cold Hands. He's like this White Walker dude that leads them there.
That's actually good.
That one actually makes sense.
I mean,
but he protects them and fends them off, and then goes off on his own to like distract them or whatever. But in the show, those skeleton bone people were supposed to be long dead whites that popped up.
All right.
Okay, I this is fuzzy, but I am starting to remember like a little bit of a fight.
Yeah,
like but I don't remember like the indication that like Jojen gets injured within it, and
and even though it was I wasn't that upset seeing Jojen die. Actually, I was like,
well, he was so much more interesting in the books because he shows up in season 2 and.
You get more background. I understand.
And even though he's in season 3 and season 4, he's not in it a lot.
Like I said, Bran's story wasn't interesting until now. From season 3's beginning. Well,
Craster's Keep was interesting.
It was, but it also wasn't in the books.
No, it wasn't.
So you knew what was going to happen.
Yeah,
you knew they were going to make it.
Yeah.
So Jojen's vision was actually pretty cool.
It was
fire
cool.
Yeah, when he's on magic mushrooms.
That was kind of fun.
Yeah. Like that was one thing, but. Like, even talking to somebody afterwards, like, their biggest problem with that scene was just, like, the whole skeleton fighting, like, skeletons coming up out of the snow. It was the first time that Game of Thrones ever seemed corny.
That's the people have been asking. Is that the jump the shark moment?
See, that's what I'm thinking.
In terms of magic, like we're gonna start seeing a lot more of that now.
Yeah, I really hope not.
But
it's been so well done in the very few instances that it has happened up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Melisandre Smoke Baby was like the first,
and then we didn't hear of anything for a while.
But we didn't. But that was like a totally like fiercely believable like instance of magic,
because the way Martin doles out those fantasy tropes, you know, he tells an engaging and political story about relationships and rival families and stuff with these tropes, you know, here and there poking their heads.
Yeah.
And I think as the story's gone along, there's been more and more and more of that, and eventually it's going to, I think, get to a point where magic's just kind of happening here and then there and then everywhere else.
I mean,
it's just gonna become.
I mean, Martin's even
prominent.
said himself, the more his series goes on, there's more and more magic. I mean, and he still says he prides himself on still using less in the entire series than most fantasy series would in like one book.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're still gonna get little and more doses of them.
I mean, the way they've been feeding White Walkers before.
I mean, when you look at White Walkers and you look at dragons, we're not really that. I mean, we've seen some serious fantasy elements that are like believable.
Right.
It's like, why are some of these so corny or unbelievable?
This one was.
What makes these so much different than others? Like, why are like frozen to death zombies like okay, but skeletons rising from the ground aren't? I think it's very followed
by a little elven girl throwing fireballs.
Yes.
Let's not forget that part as well.
Which, to be fair, we don't know a whole lot about the children of the forest at this point, too. Yeah. So, like, that's probably the idea, but we just don't know because it's kind of like the Night King. It's new territory for us. And it's not something that wasn't included in the books. It's something we don't know about as book
we seriously
readers.
don't know.
Yeah. But we did get to see the three-eyed raven. Finally.
Santa. I thought it looked like Santa.
Yeah.
If you ask me.
No, it's kind of like he's sitting under the tree, and it's kind of like the Riddler's box in Batman Forever, like all of his thoughts.
Yeah. I never thought about that. All like going to his grave.
So I mean, it was finally cool to see him and see what he actually looked like. It didn't really get as far as I think any of us thought. We thought
that would have been so much more.
It would have been a lot more, and that would have sucked up all of Bran's story for next season that we have written.
Which I wouldn't have minded.
I wouldn't have minded too, but I mean, we would have probably seen even less of Bran.
Once again, on many fronts, we expected this episode to throw more of its cards into the ball.
Yeah. Oh, honestly, I didn't really know what to expect from Bran. Like, I know it's called The Children and that related to him, but I didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
When they got to where they were, I thought maybe, okay, so they're gonna conclude.
I don't think you can cut it off though with them like going into that cave.
Yeah.
After having.
No, I'm glad he at least met like Three-Eyed Raven.
Yeah.
Because that was 2 seasons of payoff, I guess.
Yeah.
Ever since they started moving north, that's when Bran's story started really to become less interesting. It wasn't tied to Theon anymore. Traveling, walking, Hodor carrying his wheelchair, and it wasn't as interesting. So at least there was a little delivery and importance.
They finally, they did something that hopefully reignites interest in Bran's story.
Yeah. All right, so moving ahead then, last major kind of scene or series of scenes would be Arya's storyline, most specifically
colliding with
Brienne and the Hound. We'll get to Arya's kind of conclusion maybe a little later on. Maybe not.
We could probably even just talk about
touch
that
on it now. Like, basically, she's going to Bravos.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was a scene.
That's kind of like 2 seasons of payoff. Also, like she's kind of been honing her skills.
Ever since she met Jack and Hagar, I think I remember last year at the end of season 3, she had the coin and she said Valar Morghulis. I was like, yes. Please go to Bravos. Please. And that's exactly
wasn't ready for it yet, but now we're there.
I mean, the scene where she goes to the docks and salt panes, it's basically scripted straight from the book.
Yeah.
Dialogue and everything.
Yep.
And
at first it was kind of an underwhelming
first watch
first
through
watch.
because we were expecting things again.
Yeah.
Well, we won't say anything else. We didn't really even pay attention. I think.
But you know, watching it again, I did watch it again, and the music was fantastic for it. And I mean, I got chills the second time I watched it. It was a great scene.
It was exciting. It was like Sophie Turner said in an interview before it aired. It was very hopeful.
Yeah.
And it was just at first I was like, really, we're gonna end it on an Arya scene? But I love it now.
Well, hey,
I think that kind of.
Two of the seasons have been Daenerys scenes. So
Right.
It's a nice
And
change of
and the
pace.
second one was corny.
Yeah,
the
Daenerys
crowd
is,
surfing.
The crowd surfing.
Yeah. What was okay? I've been trying to think of this all week.
Season 2.
Yeah. What was season 2?
White
White
Walkers.
Walker Swarm.
Thank you.
Just in the first
I had completely forgotten what season 2 was.
Kind of. Well, yeah. You see those.
That
first,
was a great cliffhanger, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, the first 2 seasons they had such good last scenes for finales. You had Daenerys and her dragons.
Perfect
Being
setup.
Perfect ending.
Perfect.
Then season
Great
2, we
cliffhanger.
have the White Walker swarm. Like, holy crap, these things are alive.
They're
only
they
the
exist.
second White Walker scene we've seen.
Yeah.
And then season 3, there's not really much they could do about it. You had Daenerys. They had to cut it off somewhere in the middle, and the Daenerys scene is a happy ending after a terrible.
We had ideas for it,
episode 9.
and they have everything to do with the scene that we didn't see at the end.
We
of season
still
4.
can't talk about.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
stop mentioning that right there. We had speculations, but you know they had to end it on a happy note after the Red Wedding killed everyone's dreams. And this one, it was kind of along the same lines, but I liked it better.
Yeah.
Then 3.
Yeah. Yeah. The big thing though we need to talk about Brienne and the Hound
The
fight.
fight.
Something we didn't get in the books.
No.
And it was, I mean, throw the swords down. This is a fist
a
fight.
brawl.
I mean,
It's a
it is
brawl.
an absolute
This
brawl.
was
with
a not
Podrick
between the
watching.
legs fight, is what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Both took cheap shots at each other, which I thought was just
Biting off
Right
the
next,
ear.
like right at one after the other.
It was
Ear,
bam,
then the
bam.
the
Crotch.
Twat shot.
Twat
Twat
shot.
shot.
That's a little bit better than the other. The
Yeah,
punch.
let's leave that one out.
But yeah,
It
that was
great.
that was such a great.
I've heard
So
some.
it's a great
scene.
added scene.
I've heard
Yeah.
some people say they like that fight better than the Mountain and the Viper.
I don't.
I mean, I don't know if I
No.
agree, but I think it's that good that people can
That
contest.
was
a great
that, I
fight.
think I even said it that night. I felt like that was the longest fight of, or like,
one-on-one fight.
yeah, one-on-one fight that we've seen in Game of Thrones yet. Like, have there been any that lasted?
Jamie and Brienne was kind of long.
Ned, Jamie.
Ned Jamie wasn't that long.
It
It was
wasn't
that
good.
long.
It wasn't that long.
And it wasn't really. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't one-on-one for long enough.
Yeah.
Like, it was. They confronted each other, but they were like, there was a crowd of
It
people.
wasn't
and
intense.
then
It wasn't
yeah.
near as intense either.
No.
Near as brutal.
But no,
Yeah.
I think this was probably the longest
Bronn
one-on-one.
and Ser Vardis.
Oh, from
Trial of
yeah,
Combat.
that's
Moondor?
true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I think this is definitely
this had
the
higher
coolest.
stakes because you're attached to both characters.
Yeah,
I guess that's a way to put it. It's the longest fight between two characters that we are actually invested in.
Yeah.
And as you're watching it, you could just be like, "No, you're supposed to be badasses together. Stop this.
Yeah.
You guys are
Work
both
together.
You guys are both awesome. Just put aside your differences
Yeah.
and both help Arya out." or
Yeah.
something.
Wasn't it such a touching moment? Brienne's like, "What are you watching over her?" And the Hound's like, "That's exactly what I'm doing."
Yeah.
It was such a touching moment.
And then
But-
they proceeded to beat the
And
piss
then
out
they
of each
beat
other.
I thought it was a cool pause before that fight too. That Brienne and Arya had that little scene of relatability.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was
Where like
very cool.
Arya's almost looking up to like an idol of hers. Here's this huge chick in armor and this awesome
Yeah.
Valyrian sword and
Yeah.
stuff. She seemed almost mesmerized by her until she realized, oh, well, you were sent by Jaime.
All right, now I want to talk about why I'm angry with this scene.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
You're angry with it. Okay.
I'm not
with
angry.
Brienne Hound
Or is
with
it the
Arya
aftermath?
Hound.
It's the aftermath.
Okay.
Arya Hound.
Yes.
Okay. I haven't seen that particular part. I'm curious to hear what.
I'm mad. Okay, we all read the same thing afterwards. The same interview with Alex Graves.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I know. Yeah. Go ahead.
One of my favorite things going into book 6 is the illusion that potentially, not likely, but potentially, the Hound is still alive.
Yeah.
It's been talked about maybe once or twice, but it's not thought that he's actually dead. It's not confirmed that he's dead. And think about it, every single main character in the show, we have seen them die, or we have seen their corpses.
There's been a confirmed kill.
There's been a confirmed. There's been a confirmed kill.
Well, it's not confirmed in the show. It's basically like, yep, he's done.
Yeah, and that's what pisses me off, is because Alex Graves basically said,
the director of this episode.
Yeah, the director of episode 10 basically implied that this is the last that you'll see of the Hound, and it's like, wait, we've read 2 books. Without kill confirmation, that have actually created speculation, just kind of like with the Mountain, that they're still alive somewhere doing something.
And one day we'll get the Mountain and the Hound clashing together.
Yeah,
Clegane Bowl is
the
what they call it.
brothers,
Clegane Bowl.
Like dragging each other down to hell together.
Yeah.
Like it was supposed to be from the beginning. And maybe that's not supposed to happen.
Maybe
I don't know.
the door's shut on that,
but we never had the confirmed kill, and it seems like the show and the episode is implying that
it's also open-ended. It doesn't conclude. You're saying, right?
Well, yes, but Alex Graves is the one who basically said no, he's not going to be around anymore.
And this too.
I thought it was open. It was very open-ended also, and I was thinking the same thing with the show, because I know like some people had problems with the fact that she just left the Hound, and I was like,
didn't say a word either.
That's what happens in the book.
That's
she
exactly
just leaves his ass.
Well, first of all, I don't think we need to completely take everything Alex Graves says seriously.
I don't either.
That's number
because
one.
He hasn't read the books. We can get to that later. But also, what makes me uneasy, in the book, he didn't have his bones sticking out of his leg. Like,
wasn't it just like an infection?
Yeah.
Like an infected wound?
Yeah,
and he got
bit real bad.
Yeah,
which he does get in the show.
Which that's what I thought that was what was going to get him in the show, was when that
I thought it was going to be like a
when he comes up and like bites him out
thing.
and it just gets infected, and eventually he just dies from the infection. Not he gets the hell beat out of him by Brienne and then falls off a cliff.
Yeah. And then his
writers junk punched that theory.
Yeah,
literally.
They absolutely mangled the Hound, and it's like, okay, before it was believable that he could somehow survive, even if it wasn't extremely far-fetched.
Yeah.
But now it's like, he's dog meat.
He's
basically
to
at this
a
point.
pulp.
No
his
pun intended
bone
with
is
the
sticking
Hound,
out of his leg.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an infection right there. It's
Much
probably
less
already
the rest
infected when it happened. Like,
much less
how is he going to come back from that?
No fire.
So, I mean, they basically shut the door on it, but haven't locked it yet.
Yeah. It's still frustrating.
I mean,
because
it's still
that was
possible, but very doubtful.
Because that's one thing that I was kind of looking forward to in future seasons, was like, oh yeah,
this mystery.
She just left the Hound. I hope he's not dead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
and that's it.
Yeah,
that's all we know.
And then we don't see him for 2 seasons, and then he shows up again, like, oh, look who's back,
the
mother
callback,
effers. But no, they basically slammed the door on the Hound's existence, and that's kind of frustrating to me, because and maybe it's just because his character has developed so much over the last season and a half,
and then killed.
And
like they do with so many people.
But this one was different, because there's no confirmed kill in the books, and there shouldn't have been and there wasn't a confirmed kill in the show. The way it was shot, there wasn't a confirmed kill.
It was all but confirmed.
Yeah, it was just a little different, and that one was a little bit more frustrating.
I want to talk about. I've heard people complain that they didn't like the way Arya just completely just let him sit there to die and walked away. And you were saying that's how it happens in the book.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, I don't think, especially show watchers realized, was as much as we enjoyed that duo and watching them in action, they didn't.
Yeah,
they did not like being with each other.
No.
And even though
they didn't last that long in the books,
even though they seemed like buddies at time, you have to understand they just got along to survive.
Yeah.
I don't think show watchers realize that enough.
Yeah.
And that's why they were some of them were so angry.
And I mean, shout out to Maisie Williams for that scene that last scene.
The
with
stone
that.
face.
The stone
Yeah.
face. Maisie is my girl. She's awesome. I mean, I can't give enough for her. She's 17 and she's
This is her
just
first acting
incredible.
gig,
Yeah, first acting gig, just incredible. So
yeah, that was great.
yeah. I don't know, what time are we at now?
We're at like 45 minutes.
45. Okay. Well, the Heat lost the finals. Thank God. Just want to say I called it in 5 games.
You did call 5.
I was giving the sympathetic 6.
Yeah.
But I knew that the Spurs were coming for blood.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
Revenge.
Yeah.
I went home Tuesday night, came home from work, and as I was driving, I was like in a mindset, okay, I'm gonna go home, gonna watch the finals game, and then I realized there's no more.
Yeah.
And I told myself I should have cherished this more because the offensive and defensive production out of that team, the way
It
they
was
played,
ridiculous. It was incredible.
They broke
it is
Miami
rare,
down.
It is rare we'll ever see that again.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, and who knows? I mean, they may all be back next year, but it is such a special brand of basketball how they played in these playoffs.
Yeah.
And I should have cherished it more.
Yeah.
I love
Hey,
it. And it's not even a knock against the Heat. Like, yeah, I'm glad the Heat didn't win.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge LeBron fan by any means. But I'm not here to bash the Heat. I'm just here to praise the Spurs.
Yeah.
It was just...
I don't even want to bash LeBron because he was the
only
only guy who was playing.
He is the only guy you can give credit to on that team.
Yeah,
I mean, we all read the Simmons column today.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody asked the question, like, could you name LeBron the series MVP? And it's like, if his team won, absolutely. But even though, obviously, he deserves a ton of praise for how much of that team he put on his back in 5 games. The problem was his team still got the hell beat out of him.
Well, I mean, I remember I told you guys when we talked about like our preview of the finals, like I didn't think LeBron, he couldn't carry his team forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was doing so much for them.
Well, the big 3, the other 2 of the big 3, Chris Bosh and D Wade couldn't even.
No, I mean, Bill Simmons said it in his article that he quietly turned into the 2010 Cavs.
Yeah. No, that's not.
I mean, that is exactly what happened. It was LeBron versus the world in that series, and that's not going to get it done.
No, it didn't in 2010, and it didn't here.
Yeah,
and it was glorious.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys listen to Colin Cowherd at all?
Not
ESPN
not
radio.
Very much.
The one thing he said going forward that Miami could take away from this was clarity.
Mm-hmm.
From Pat Riley to Mario Chalmers, in terms of like Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh wanting to renegotiate their contracts or opt back in, or Wade wanting more money or something like that. He definitely cannot go back and say, hey, look, I want a Kobe type deal.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Definitely not.
This gives all the players clarity and no excuse to say, I deserve more or I want more money, because there's no way after a disappointment like this, a lack of show in the finals.
And even before the finals, they didn't play anyone. I mean,
I think
still took them to 6 games.
I think this shows how bad the East is.
Oh, the East.
And I think the Heat became content with, well, we beat the East, so I mean.
I remember thinking beginning of the playoffs, if the Heat were in the Western Conference, they would not make the finals.
They would have been what, a 4 or 5 seed?
I think they would have been a 4 seed, or a 5 seed. They would have played San Antonio round 2.
The wear and tear would have gotten to them after like a series and a half, probably.
So,
I loved it.
I don't know. Do we have anything else to talk about? I think that wraps it up. I guess.
Pretty sure. I mean, we don't have to talk about the World Cup. We can.
Tyler likes the World Cup.
I like soccer. Okay, I like soccer, and these guys don't.
I respect the World Cup. It's a great event.
Yes,
except FIFA.
And FIFA's the worst. But soccer and the World Cup are fun. But the World Cup is the one time every 4 years where we can get Americans who hate soccer to still watch soccer.
Yeah, it's a great event.
Because you're supporting the damn
country.
United States of America.
And
I love that about the World Cup. Having said that, this year's World Cup has been so great. There's been so many great games. There have been some... I mean, one of the best matches, and it's so hard to convince people when you say that this is how it turned out, but one of the best games of the World Cup so far was a 0-0 draw between Brazil and Mexico. And
I just can't grasp that
I know. That's the problem. Like, that was one of the most thrilling games because it's all about chances in that. Like, you can score 1 billion points in basketball. There's no exhilaration behind scoring unless it's close at the end. That's why.
Or they're amazing plays.
Or they're amazing plays, but there are amazing plays in soccer too. And that's the thing about basketball and football and whatever else. It's like teams can score. They can score a lot, and it doesn't really matter unless it's close at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
If it's 0-0 the entire way, like,
there's a lot of
one
tension.
goal can make the difference no matter where it comes, and one goal coming back, like, say that Mexico had somehow scored and went up 1-0, mm-hmm. the unbelievable amount of pressure then that puts on Brazil to score and get that point, like the point back, and try and draw with Mexico, like, it's amazing to see the chances that their team puts, and even did in that game. Like, oh my God, there was the entire second half. It was just like, it was like haymaker after haymaker on mm-hmm. both sides, mm-hmm. and like Mexico would take like Brazil's best shot for about 10 minutes as far as offensive possession. Then it would shift back, and it was just crazy to see them survive each other's intense amount of shots, mm-hmm. and the Mexican keeper, I forget his name off the top of my head, but he had probably the best individual performance you will see in the World Cup. I mean, he had to stop a header that was dead on from like me to you, like, and he did it. He did it. It came off a corner, and they headed it right as you're supposed to, just down, mm-hmm. and he just put his fists up, blocked it away, and conserved the draw, and it was one of the most exciting games, but because it ended in a 0-0 draw, no score.
It means nothing.
It doesn't even mean nothing. It's just, that's the type of thing that it's hard to convince people who don't like soccer that this was a great game, because they see that, like, earlier when you guys got here, and obviously this is time-sensitive information on a podcast, but I was watching Japan-Greece. Greece was down a man, and the game ended in a 0-0 draw. Wasn't nearly as exciting as the Mexico-Brazil one.
But the urgency of being down a player.
Like, Greece was down a player, and they took so many attempts from Japan, and they only had like 1 or 2 chances to counter. And whenever they did and got close, it's like, oh my God, are they going to go up, down a man? Like, this is, like, the drama is there. It's just, sometimes it's harder to realize that the drama is actually there if you're if you're not familiar with the sport as much, or you don't care about the sport as much. It's hard to realize that the drama's there in those situations.
I think for me, it's hard to get into it when, all that happens, that mm-hmm. drama, that tension and urgency, but then there isn't any results that actually come from it.
And that's the biggest, like, the Mexico-Brazil match, I feel like probably would have been a colossal disappointment to you. You probably would have been on the edge of your seat for 90 minutes, and then at the end you're like, wait, it was still 0-0 at the end of the game. Like, are you serious?
No, can't we do at least PKs or something?
They don't do, at the World Cup, they don't do overtime until the round of 16.
Right.
So group games, it's all win, loss, draw. Mm-hmm. It's all good. But once it gets to the round of 16, the field is narrowed down. That's when there's overtime, there's double overtime, PKs. And then there's PKs. Yeah. And so that's where, if that's where the drama's ratcheted up a little bit more. Having said that, the first round has been absolutely wonderful so far, and I can't wait till USA versus Portugal on Sunday.
It's gonna be weird going into Sunday and there's not a Game of Thrones episode.
I know. Yeah, there's not. I don't think there's anything on, like,
Leftovers starts a week
Leftovers and True Blood, I think, both start on the 29th, and so that's gonna be a big night for me. it's going to be like kind of like a night for you guys.
An interesting, yeah, because we'll probably tune in.
Because I know you guys don't watch True Blood, and I only watch it because
you're in it this far.
I'd say guilty. It was good, and then it was dumb, and then it was interesting, and then it got even more interesting, and then it kind of went back into kind of weird crappiness, and now it's just like, well, I'm on the last season. It's strictly under guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it's the best vampire thing I've ever show I've ever seen. But then again, not from the standpoint of vampires.
Like you're a hardcore vampire.
It's
judge.
the most tolerable vampire show I've ever seen. It's not the most. I don't mean that like it's the most accurate. It's just the one that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So because I don't enjoy many vampire things anymore.
Oh God, Twilight.
So.
Okay, but I think that wraps up our episode.
Yeah, I know that we had talked a Lista top 5.
There's no Lista.
Top 5 moments from Game of Thrones season 4, but I mean,
yeah.
Could
be a lot more. Anyway,
we can do that next week when we're reaching for content.
When we do our Lista.
When we're out of Game of Thrones to do.
Okay. Yeah, which is now because we don't have any more.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna come
for 10 months, 9 months, whatever.
Yeah, 9 months.
Anyway, so
9 months.
April next year.
Yeah. So thank you all for joining us. We're going to sign off.
Yes, that will do it. All right.
We'll do it
next week or whenever.
Okay, welcome back. We are doing a little bonus content for you.
Now, first of all,
let's get this clarified out. If you have not read at least through A Storm of Swords,
now, didn't we agree the whole series?
We said the whole series, but at the very least, Storm of Swords.
At the very least, you have had to have read the 3rd book of the Game of Thrones series. Preferably, we'd like you to read all the way through all 5 of them.
That might mean if you haven't read all 5, you might just want to turn back.
Yeah,
we don't know where we'll go.
But, I mean, Storm of Swords, at the very least, you have to have finished
We'll try and keep it
that way.
Yeah.
We'll be careful.
Yeah.
Anyway,
huge spoilers!
Massive
stop!
Now!
Spoilers. For the love of God, go!
Yeah.
Okay.
Your mom wants to talk to you.
All right.
Spoilers. Okay, let's have a little moment of silence for you to all sign off. Okay, now.
Reason.
There is one big issue that we all have with the finale.
Let's put the goggles back on.
Goggles are back on.
Goggles initiated.
We just went through that whole podcast. We took our goggles off. We looked at it as unbiased as we can to the books.
I dropped it once or twice.
So let's
do a little explaining here.
Okay.
You're here now.
You dropped. Okay, first of all, I don't expect any parents to still be here at this point, so
Yes.
I'm going to do. You dropped the first F-bomb in the history of this program.
Anyway,
so I'm
gonna beep it out. Actually,
No.
So I'm gonna drop the second one.
Okay, Tyler, take it away.
Where the fuck was Lady Stoneheart? Where was she?
Okay.
Where was she? Weiss, Benioff, are you watching? Where was she?
The biggest thing that we're upset about is Lady Stark, Catelyn Stark. The second biggest holy crap moment, the second biggest reaction moment in the entire series is the reveal that Catelyn Stark has been reanimated, brought back, and is on a
by Thoros
of Myr. What happened, Beric took his kiss of life that he gets from the Red God and basically transferred it to the dead Lady Stark, whose skin is white and her throat is
puffy.
She
from,
can't even
bloating.
talk.
She can't talk because
her throat is cut to the
bone.
Yeah. And this is in the epilogue. She is revealed on the very last page of the epilogue. And this is the biggest reaction moment, other than the Red Wedding, in the entire series.
And maybe Ned's death.
It's
arguable to say it's the second, but
honestly, Ned's death would be the show. The books,
I put it above Ned's death personally.
Yeah. But the entire thing, we don't even see Thoros the entire season, nothing on Lady Stark.
No hint at all.
On Lady Stoneheart. Nothing at all.
And when we first watched this, Those were the goggles we had the whole time, just expecting Lady Stoneheart.
Because that was what we've been expecting all season.
That's what we've been hyping to people all season.
You gotta realize
there's going to be something
that
will
literally blow
as a book
your
reader.
mind. You know that that's what.
And so
you were probably doing it too.
And so when we got done watching this episode, we all were really underwhelmed.
Pissed.
Yeah,
we were depressed.
Yeah.
The next day when we were talking and texting about
it was bad.
Our lives were horrible. This was really the first time we have ever watched the show and have just been completely disappointed in the show.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're amazing. Benioff and Wise are great, but we for the first time just we were really mad at them.
Yeah.
Benioff, Wise, you fucked up. Okay?
Yeah.
It's nothing personal.
You done did
we
wrong.
still think they're great, but they fucked up.
Yes,
it's true.
They did. I mean,
they did.
You see, that was such the reason.
Like
When I would tell people, listen, you have got to watch this season. This is where everything just changes.
That's
Lady Stoneheart is the thing.
Yeah.
Tyrion killing his dad's huge.
That is
no,
huge.
It is huge.
That is huge.
That is
Joffrey
huge.
dying.
Huge.
Moondor, the Littlefinger reveal.
The Battle of the Wall.
So many big things.
And there's so many of these things that happen in a row, and then it's like everything just flips the entire other way.
Cherry on top.
Boom! Lady Stoneheart is dead, back for revenge, hanging Freys, and just running amok in the Riverlands.
And she's nowhere. And it's like...
It's frustrating.
And again, I refer to the Alex Graves interview. And
I got something to say about that.
For them to... assuming that this is all accurate... For them to have never even planned to do it this season, thought about doing it this season, and for the logic to be that why would we bring Michelle Fairley back
as just a zombie or something?
Okay,
first of all, those were his exact words.
Okay, but if they're gonna bring her back as a zombie to do that, why not bring her back in a guest role? It's not like
she's supposed to be a main character.
It's not like she's supposed to be in every episode. Like honestly, if you had her in that episode, you probably would need her one time
with a skeleton crew,
with a skeleton, with like nobody,
Frey, 3 extras and Thoros, and that's it.
And you need that's for this season, and then next season you maybe need her once on a set with Brienne, and that's it.
That's it.
You need her for 2 scenes so far in what we have, and how can you not bring her back for those 2 scenes, especially knowing how big of a reaction that would get out of everybody to see book readers finally see it set into reality,
and to see
for
show watchers
like, oh my god, Catelyn Stark's alive, sort of. Like, it would blow people away.
And the zombie Michelle Fairley. This is America. People love zombies.
They do love zombies.
Love zombies.
Have you seen the ratings for Walking Dead?
Have you seen Walking Dead? Like, come on.
This is concerning Alex Graves in the interview he had. First off, I had a love-hate relationship with what I'm going to call these post-game interviews that they had seemingly every week after the episode, the next day on Monday. Usually like on EW.
It was almost always Entertainment Weekly.
They would always have these post-game interviews with the showrunners and the directors, and I had a love-hate relationship with it. And a lot of the times I hated it was because they delved into Alex Graves' mind. I don't know what this guy's deal was, but he's had the 2 most controversial episodes of this season. The first one was the episode with Jaime and Cersei and what turned into the rapey scene. In that interview, he talks about how, it starts off rough, but it turns into consensual. It never doesn't. And everyone was like, dude, what are you watching?
Yeah.
Why are you... And it didn't make any sense. And then he goes into this interview post episode 10.
He says the Hound's dead, first of all.
First of all, he says, there's no way, the Hound's dead. And then he talks about how, Lady Catelyn, there wouldn't be worth bringing her back for just this zombie killing machine or whatever. And it really begged me to ask the question, does this guy realize the content with which he is actually filming?
On top of that, it makes me wonder, what do Benioff and Weiss see in this guy?
To be fair, he did.
He's a great director.
He filmed 4 and 5 from season 3, and those were great episodes.
That's true.
He filmed he filmed The Mountain and the Viper.
He filmed The Mountain and the Viper.
Great episode.
Yeah.
But for some reason, specific key moments, character moments, he seems to have just not realized what it is he's filming,
and he's not a book reader,
and how important it is. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's part of it.
But
he came off.
Like
especially after this interview, he came off almost as a book trolling narcissist who just didn't care what people thought.
Yeah.
He was just like really like, hey,
to be fair, I feel like directors are kind of like that. Like they don't give an F what people think about their craft if they like it.
Well, see, and here's the thing too, like
it's their vision, not ours.
The thing when it comes to like these showrunners, when they have a really beloved book and they make a drastic change like that, or they leave something huge like that out, and then you get an interview reaction from them, and they're like, it's kind of like they didn't expect all the fans to go ape shit that this isn't in there. Like, dude, you know, this is what we've been waiting for. Like, we want reactions.
Yeah.
And you just left it out. Like, don't tell me you weren't expecting a mountain full of fans to go just bonkers. She? Like, where is she at?
I think Benioff and Weiss' in Alex Graves' biggest mistake was the way they talked this up.
Yeah,
the week before. They were in an interview saying this is the best episode we've ever shot.
It's
scene
gonna
by
blow
scene.
fans away.
It's the most expensive. It's the most expensive episode we've shot, frame by frame. And then they said, what was the other thing that they said? Oh, they submitted all the different nominations for Emmys and stuff off
with
this
that episode
before they even aired.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought book watchers and show watchers just to expect so much. I think that they overhyped it.
Yeah.
That said, though, because I've gone through and I watched it again, and like we said before, when you go through without the Lady Stoneheart,
it's a great episode.
It is an awesome episode. I mean, it's excellent, and I could see why they still nominated it for Emmys and everything.
Yeah. Well,
the thing I've really learned about this season though was Benioff and Weiss don't like putting all their eggs in one basket, and by that I mean, look at the way they spread out the big moments throughout this whole season.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't put a bang for pound, one big scene after another in an episode. They really spread them out. And I understand that they did that. And what I hope, and I've heard someone theorize what they're going to do with Lady Stoneheart next year, given that she's still in it, and I think she'll still be in it.
I would hope.
I'm
not going to take what Alex Graves said about. Like,
I don't think she's.
It really seemed like he made it seem like she wasn't going to be in it, but he's not directing any next season.
No,
and he hasn't read the books, and Benioff and Weiss didn't tell him, so I take that with a grain of salt.
That said, I think hopefully they're like retooling the whole Lady Stoneheart thing to sort of become like. Brienne is going to be in the Riverlands next season. Jaime, if he follows the story in the book, he'll be in the Riverlands as well, exploring and going around and stuff. And in the book, they talk a lot about this Stoneheart, leader of the Brotherhood and stuff. And I hope that like they just like talk about, oh yeah, there's this new Stoneheart character that and it goes for like 4 or 5, maybe 6 episodes.
Have like almost like a Night King type reveal, like have it be discussed, but very little's talked about and nothing's revealed. It's just that's kind of the way that they can make up.
Kind of the way it would totally make up to it. It's kind of the way the Mountain was built up this season.
Yeah,
we didn't see him till.
Episode 7. Or was it? Yeah, you're right. It was 7. I thought it was 6.
And they talked about,
it was 7.
Even from the first episode of this season, how horrible of a person he was. He had Oberyn Martell's monologue and everything.
Because
I think that's one way that they could really. Nothing's gonna beat them revealing her at the end of episode 10. Mm-hmm. That was potentially, I think, the best moments.
That was the best moment
for shock.
Yeah. And. Yeah, especially like
because it's the end of the season. It gives a whole year of speculation.
Yeah, and it's kind of like before the season, we were expecting kind of those huge moments, all of them to be in the finale. I mean, you have the 2 gratifying moments: Tyrion killing Tywin, and the other one they didn't get to, and they say for that one. That one's I don't have a problem with that one. And then you had the Moon Door shocker.
Yeah,
and they decided to move that up to episode 7.
And the revelation from the Moon Door to like 2 episodes before that.
Yeah. And then you have Lady Stoneheart, and it's just like blows everything up.
Yeah, the last 3 chapters just completely changed the scope of the series.
And the only thing we got from that in the finale was Tyrion killing Tywin.
Yeah.
Right. And I still feel, I get why they moved up the moon door, but I feel like if they weren't going to have Stoneheart in it, they should have saved the moon door for the finale.
Yeah.
Overall,
with that reveal.
Yeah.
Overall, even just watching the second time, with more time going by and just thinking about it and stuff, I think I'm going to be all right with, if they push Stoneheart back and make it a really cool reveal in a different way next season, I think I'm going to be all right with it. But the thing that I think will bug me going forward, and I'll just always think about now more actually than Stoneheart once I've thought about it, is going to be the way Tyrion's scene was ultimately done. I think that because Stoneheart is still fixable.
Yeah,
it can still be great
because it hasn't.
We can't get the Tyrion thing back.
Yeah,
that's and I think that'll be more disappointing in the end for me.
Yeah,
unless Stoneheart never shows up,
then that's a really
if Stoneheart never shows up, that would definitely be the most disappointing moment of this entire series.
Yeah,
because it's just such a huge.
And I mean, maybe she doesn't end up playing a gigantic role, but it's
as far as we know, if you haven't read the whole series, stop right now.
Yeah.
She's already playing a prominent role in Jaime and Brienne's storyline.
Jaime's life is in the balance right now with Lady Stoneheart.
That we know of.
That's the person I'm most concerned for in the next book.
Exactly.
He's become one of my favorite characters, and now he is.
He could very well be dead.
He is absolutely
right at the beginning
in Stoneheart's sights.
Yeah. So,
and she's got Brienne playing the fiddle,
and she has Pod. Don't forget that.
That's true.
She has Podrick.
Yeah.
God forbid.
So
that's kind of our venting / reasoning it with a segment.
I hope that
no matter what they do, it's not going to be able to live up to the shocker of ending a season with it. Yeah. But they can at least make up a good portion of it if they do it the right way.
Yeah. Just having it show
Just including it.
I think this was a moment too, maybe for us. So we're on a 9-10 month hiatus with the show now and everything. And as book readers, I think this is a chance for us to accept and come to terms with that. Moving forward, there's probably going to be a lot more changes, possibly
not even changes, but just stuff that we
like
know.
That we won't get.
Yeah.
Because for the sake of the show, they've got to cut a lot of things or move a lot of things around, and we just we can't be snobby or be too picky about it, because in the end, once the story gets into the 4th and 5th book, things get so twisted and just weird, and things aren't going to happen the same way.
We're going to see a lot of Greyjoys next year.
And
Greyjoys and Martells.
Greyjoys and Martells.
I'm really looking forward to the Martell storyline.
And people are going to be like, who in the hell are these guys?
Yeah. I like it, though.
I'm really looking forward to
I feel like I'm going to enjoy the Greyjoys and the Martells more on the show than I did in the books.
Yeah.
I feel like, and someone else was saying this in a podcast I was listening to, for the first time, we're probably going to move away from King's Landing a little more. We're not going to... Well,
Peter Dinklage might very well be in 3 episodes next season.
He'll be in.
There will obviously be
8, I'm sure.
King's Landing in a lot of it, but there's going to be a lot less, I think, than past years.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, think about it, Tyrion's not there anymore. Varys isn't there anymore. Tywin's dead.
Although he...
All we've got really is
Jaime.
Cersei, Jaime, and the returning Tyrells.
Yeah.
That's all we're gonna have.
We didn't get to talk about this. I'm really interested to see what they're doing with Varys. Him boarding the ship with Tyrion.
In the book though, he possibly could have been done.
Yeah, I mean, he could very well loop around, take a hiatus, come back, and wreak havoc.
Just go off the grid for
right. Yeah, I mean that's very possible.
And I mean, he could be guiding Tyrion into Illyrio. So,
they might have a threesome sit down and discussion.
That would be.
I think that would be cool to see Illyrio
awesome.
and Varys interact again. I'm excited to see how they're going to use Varys now.
Yeah. So, well, I think that actually concludes tonight's podcast.
Yes. Thanks for staying tuned.
Yeah.
Hopefully we didn't spoil everything for you. If you
and hopefully you
fell asleep and are just waking up because our podcast is so boring.
And I'm hoping that you didn't just watch this because it was content and actually listened and you're here because you've read the books.
Hopefully.
I don't want any non-book readers to have seen this part of the podcast.
Yes, I'd be very upset. Anyways, thank you for joining us. We are actually done now.
Yes, no extra black screen.
Hopefully, we'll be back with a podcast about something next week.
I don't know what. I don't think I can get you guys to talk about the World Cup.
Probably not.
Maybe they'll just bring in a guest or something.
Yeah. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, we still got the least episode we can do.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's us actually signing off now.
Woo!
So,
take care, folks.
See ya.